$1,600 in February. Grand champion in August. Same bull, same breed. 6 months between a laugh that traveled across an auction barn and a silence that traveled further. This is not the kind of story that happens in one day. It's the kind that takes 6 months of early mornings and a dead man's boots and a mother who won't throw away a folding chair because giving it away would mean admitting the man who used to sit in it is never coming back. It starts in a calving barn. It always starts in a calving barn. Ringgold County, Iowa. Southern tier of the state, where the flat black soil corn country breaks into rolling hills and timber and the kind of small farms that the agricultural economy has been pressing out of existence for 40 years. 140 acres, shorthorn cattle, a family named Linden that had been breeding them since Jesse's father Lloyd brought his first registered heifer home in 1989 and told his wife Vera, "This is what we're going to be, shorthorn people." Vera looked at the heifer, looked at Lloyd, said, "You better be right, because there's not enough money for you to be wrong." Lloyd was right. Not in the way that makes a man wealthy. Shorthorns hadn't been the profitable breed in Iowa for 20 years by the time he started. Right in the way that makes a man certain. He loved the breed the way some men love a river or a hymn. Not because it was the best choice, but because it was his choice, and he'd made it early and held it stubbornly against every market signal that told him to switch to Angus like everyone else. He bred for what he called the whole animal. Not the thickest, not the tallest. Not the one that made judges stop walking at a show. The one that lasted. Sound feet that carry a cow across rough pasture for 12 years. Clean udders that don't break down after 3 lactations. Calm dispositions that let you work cattle without a rodeo. The things that keep an operation running quietly in the background while the show ring rewards everything loud and temporary. Lloyd showed cattle at fairs and expos for 25 years. Never won grand champion. Never placed higher than 3rd at state level. His cattle were moderate when judges wanted massive. Balanced when they wanted extreme. Functional when they wanted spectacular. He went anyway. Every year. Loaded the trailer, drove to the show, put his bull in the ring, stood there while the judge walked past. Then he'd drive home and say the same thing to Vera. Someday they'll figure out that cattle aren't supposed to look like that, and when they do, our bulls will be ready. Lloyd died on a Tuesday morning in March of 2019, in the calving barn. Heart attack. His hand was still on the flank of a first calf heifer when Jesse found him at noon. The heifer had calved on her own. The calf was standing and nursing. Lloyd was on the ground beside them with his fingers still touching the hide, as if the last message his body sent was, "Stay with the cow." Jesse was 28. He'd been at Iowa State and Ames studying animal science, not because he loved classrooms, but because Lloyd had insisted. "Get the degree, son. Then come home. The degree gives you options. The farm gives you purpose. You need both." Jesse never finished the degree. He drove home the day Lloyd died because Vera couldn't run 140 acres alone at 67 with a hip that was already arguing with gravity and hands that were permanently curved from decades of milking and mending and holding things heavier than she was. He parked his truck, walked into the house, unpacked his bag into his old bedroom, put on Lloyd's boots because they were the same size, and buying new ones would have meant spending money on something that already existed in the closet. The next morning at 4:30, he walked to the barn and started. 7 years of that. Jesse was 35 now, running the same program Lloyd had run. Shorthorns on grass, moderate cattle on moderate land with a moderate income that covered the mortgage and the feed and the taxes and approximately nothing else. He worked 3 days a week at the grain elevator in Kellerton to cover the gap. The truck was a 2008 Chevy with 211,000 miles. The tractor was a 92 John Deere that Lloyd bought used, and Jesse kept alive with baling wire and a friendship with the parts counter in Lamoni. Vera was 74, white hair in a braid she'd worn since 72, a cane for the hip. She still kept the books, still kept the garden, still made biscuits every Sunday morning because Lloyd had loved them, and stopping would have felt like clearing his plate from the table. She hadn't cleared his plate 7 years. His coffee mug was still in the cabinet. His jacket was still on the hook by the door. His boots, the other pair, the ones Jesse didn't take, were still by the bed. Some women move on. Vera moved forward, which is a different direction that looks the same from the outside but feels nothing alike from the inside. The bull was born in March of 22, out of a cow named Six, Lloyd's numbering system. Sired by a bull Jesse had bought at a small sale in Davis County for $2,300, borrowed from Vera's savings, with a promise to pay it back from the calf check. The sire was moderate, clean-made, the kind of bull that doesn't photograph well for a catalog. But his feet were the best Jesse had seen on a shorthorn since the cattle his father showed him as a kid. Short, tight, black as iron. The calf came out red roan with a white blaze that ran crooked down his face, like someone started painting a line and got distracted halfway through. Jesse noticed 3 things in the first week. The feet, a copy of his sire's. Perfect. The disposition, dead calm. The calf let Jesse handle him at 2 days old without flinching, stood there with his head slightly tilted. The expression of an animal that has already decided the human in front of him is acceptable. And the movement, the way he walked, fluid, straight tracking, no winging, no paddling. The locomotion of an animal whose skeletal geometry was assembled correctly by 30 years of Lloyd Linden's quiet, unrewarded, stubborn breeding. Jesse called Vera to the barn. She looked at the calf through the window for a long time before she spoke. He moves like your father's cattle. I know. What are you going to name him? Lloyd. Vera put her hand on the barn wall. The same wall Lloyd Sr. had leaned against 10,000 mornings, and didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. The name was right. They both knew it. Jesse developed Lloyd on grass. No grain. No show conditioning program. No supplements designed to pack artificial muscle onto a frame for the purpose of impressing someone who would see the animal for 60 seconds in a ring. Iowa pasture, brome, orchard grass, clover, and the mineral program Lloyd Sr. had used for 3 decades. By 18 months, the bull was 1,200 pounds. Moderate. A shorthorn on a show feeding program would have been 1,400 to 1,500 at the same age. Lloyd looked like a bull that had walked in from a pasture. Because he had. In February of 24, Jesse took Lloyd to the Tri-County Shorthorn Consignment Sale in Chariton. Not a major sale. A regional event where breeders from southern Iowa sold young bulls to commercial operations. 40 bulls cataloged. Jesse's was lot 31. The catalog entry had empty spaces where data should have been. No EPD submission, no performance records, no show history. Consigned by Linden Farms, Ringgold County. The auctioneer read it and the energy in the room dropped. Harold Meeker was in the 4th row. 64. Registered Shorthorns in Hardin County. Show winners for 2 decades. Catalog bulls with numbers that filled every column and photographs that made breeders reach for their checkbooks. Harold looked at lot 31, a grass-raised bull with no data and a winter coat that hadn't been clipped, and exhaled through his nose. The laugh, not loud, the ranch version. Exhale through the nose. Head shake. Glance at the man beside him. The man smiled. 2 others turned. 4 became 8. 8 became 12. And by the time the auctioneer asked for an opening bid, the barn had decided that lot 31 was a punchline. 3,000. Silence. 2,500. Silence. 2,000. Silence. 1,600. One hand. A commercial cattleman from Appanoose County who bought bulls for function and didn't care about show records. Sold. $1,600. Jesse led Lloyd out of the ring with his jaw locked and his shoulders carrying the specific stiffness of a man absorbing a blow he'd expected but hoped wouldn't land. Vera was outside in her folding chair, the same chair she'd carried to every show Lloyd Sr. ever entered. She looked at Jesse's face and already knew. Was it Meeker? Jesse tied the bull to the trailer. How'd you know? Because Harold Meeker laughed at your father in a sale barn 30 years ago. Same sound. Some men never learn a new trick. Jesse didn't respond. He loaded Lloyd. The buyer from Appanoose hadn't arranged transport yet and would pick up later. And and drove home. But the buyer never came. 3 days later, Jesse's phone rang. The Appanoose cattleman. His voice was apologetic. "Mr. Linden, I'm going to pass on that bull. My wife looked at the catalog and said we can't justify $1,600 on an animal with no data. I'm sorry. I should have thought it through before I bid." Jesse hung up, stood in the kitchen, looked at Lloyd through the window. The bull was grazing in the near pasture. Moderate. Red roan. Crooked blaze. Perfect feet. Completely unaware that he'd been rejected twice in 3 days. Jesse called the auction house, told them the sale fell through, asked about relisting. The auction manager's voice was careful. "Mr. Linden, we can relist him, but honestly, if he didn't move at 1,600, he's not going to move at all in this market. My advice, use him in your own herd or send him to the sale barn for market price." Market price for a young shorthorn bull in February was about $1,100. Beef weight, the value of his meat, not his genetics. Jesse looked at Lloyd through the window one more time. Then he made a decision that wasn't about money. "I'm keeping him." He called Vera from the barn that evening. She was in the kitchen making supper. "I'm entering Lloyd in the Iowa State Fair. August, the Shorthorn show." Vera set down her spoon. "The State Fair? Jesse, that's the biggest show in the Midwest. Those bulls are fitted by professionals, clipped, conditioned. They've been on grain programs since they were weaned. I know what they are. I also know what Lloyd is. And I think there's a judge out there who'll see it. Dad went to shows for 25 years waiting for that judge. I can go once. 6 months, February to August." Jesse had 6 months to prepare a grass-raised bull for the biggest shorthorn show in the region, without grain, without a fitting crew, without a clipping stand, without any of the tools that every other exhibitor would use. He didn't change the program. That was the point. If Lloyd was the whole animal, the animal Lloyd Sr. had spent 30 years breeding toward, then he needed to walk into the ring as the whole animal. Not a version enhanced by management, the actual thing. Jesse Halter broke Lloyd in March, walked him every morning before elevator shifts, a mile down the gravel road and back. The bull walked beside him with the calm of an animal that didn't understand shows or judges or the difference between $1,600 and a purple banner. He just walked. Feet hitting gravel with the sound of something solid meeting something solid. In April, Jesse started working on show positioning, teaching Lloyd to stand square on command, front feet even, back feet set. Most show cattle learn this over years of practice from the time they're calves. Lloyd learned it in 3 sessions. He stood where Jesse put him and stayed there. Not because he was trained, but because his disposition was the kind that doesn't argue with reasonable requests. May, June, July. Jesse walked Lloyd every morning. Fed him grass and mineral. Let the Iowa summer build whatever coat the genetics and the sunlight decided to produce. No clipping, no blow drying, no products. Just the animal. Vera watched from the kitchen window most mornings, her son walking a bull down a gravel road at 5 a.m. wearing his father's boots. The same road Lloyd Sr. had walked his cattle down for 30 years. She didn't say anything, but she started pressing Jesse's white show shirt in July, 3 weeks before the fair. She hung it on the back of the bedroom door and didn't mention it. Jesse saw it, didn't mention it either. Some things between mothers and sons don't need words. They need a pressed shirt on a door. August, Des Moines, the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Jesse hauled Lloyd in the same 16-foot stock trailer his father had used for 25 years. Dent in the left panel from a cow that kicked it in 11. Oak floor that Lloyd Sr. replaced in 15 because he said factory floors didn't understand traction. The Shorthorn show barn was full. Regional exhibitors from Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Minnesota, fitted cattle gleaming under the fluorescent lights, professional handlers in pressed whites with sponsor logos. The smell of show sheen and hair product, and the particular tension of a room full of people who've invested thousands of dollars in making animals look like something they're not. Lloyd stood in his pen looking like something he was. His summer coat was smooth but unclipped. His body was moderate. The slight dip behind the shoulder that show people call a fault, and structural people call correct. His hindquarter was adequate, but not dramatic. His top line was clean, but not the ruler straight line that comes from heavy feeding and strategic clipping. But his feet, short, tight, black as iron, planted on the concrete like they'd been poured there by someone who understood that the foundation determines whether the building lasts. Nobody was looking at his feet. They were looking at his coat. Harold Meeker walked past the pen. Didn't stop. Didn't need to. He'd seen this bull 6 months ago in Chariton and exhaled through his nose. Nothing had changed about the bull. Nothing had changed about Harold. The 2-year-old bull class had 14 entries. 13 were show-conditioned, clipped, blown, polished, standing in the ring like statues of themselves. The 14th was Lloyd, led by Jesse, in a white shirt his mother had pressed 3 weeks ago. With a halter and a show stick and 6 months of gravel road walks and the calm certainty of a man who'd made his peace with whatever was about to happen. The judge was Dr. Carolyn Reese, 58. National-level Shorthorn judge for 12 years. Known for 2 things. She valued structural soundness above all else. And she did not follow trends. She worked down the line. Professional. Methodical. Evaluate. Note. Move on. When she reached Lloyd, she stopped. The clipboard lowered. Her eyes narrowed. She walked around him. Twice. Looked at his feet. Long enough that the crowd noticed. Watched him walk forward 10 steps and back. Studied the top line. Studied the hindquarter. The angle of a pelvis that lets calves be born at 2 a.m. without a vet. She wrote on her card, moved on, finished the class. Harold Meeker's bull Ironside was in the ring. Thick, dark red, polished, the favorite. Dr. Reese returned to center, pulled her class. Second place, Ironside. The crowd murmured. First place. She pointed at Lloyd. Silence. The kind that doesn't breathe. 400 people looking at a grass-raised, unclipped, unfitted, moderate shorthorn bull with no data and a catalog full of empty spaces, standing in first place at the Iowa State Fair. Dr. Reese walked to the microphone. Oral reasons. Public. The moment where a judge defends a decision to people who disagree with it. I place this class on structural soundness. Feet, legs, skeletal correctness. The bull I've placed first, from Linden Farms, has the best set of feet and legs I've seen in this breed in 5 years of judging at this level. She paused. His locomotion is flawless. His skeletal geometry is correct. The top-line feature some may view as a fault is the natural profile of a properly structured vertebral column. He is moderate in condition because he was developed on forage, and which means what you are seeing is the animal, not the management. Another pause. Longer. The kind a person takes before saying something they know will be quoted. We have spent 20 years in this breed breeding cattle to impress judges. Maybe it's time we started breeding cattle to last. This bull will be standing on those feet at 12 when most of the bulls in this class will be culled for lameness at 6. She looked at Lloyd one more time. The whole animal matters. And this is the whole animal. Silence. Then applause. The kind that means a room full of people may not agree with the placing, but they respect what was said. Harold Meeker did not clap. He stood with his catalog rolled in his fist and a jaw that was working on something that wasn't food. Jesse led Lloyd out of the ring with a purple banner across the bull's back and hands that were shaking. Not from cold, from the weight of holding something his father reached for 25 years and never touched. Vera was at the trailer, folding chair, cane, braid. The same eyes that had watched Lloyd Sr. lose at 25 shows and drive home saying, "Someday." Jesse walked up to her. Couldn't speak. His jaw was doing the thing that jaws do when feelings are bigger than the opening. Vera looked at the banner, looked at the bull, looked at her son standing in his father's boots. The same boots that had walked in and out of 25 show rings without a champion banner. She didn't say congratulations. Didn't say I'm proud of you. She said, his feet are just like your father's. And Jesse understood she wasn't talking about the bull. 3 breeders approached before he left. 2 wanted to buy Lloyd. 1 wanted semen rights. 8,000 to 15,000. For a bull that couldn't sell for 1,600 6 months ago. Jesse said no to all 3. Harold Meeker's herdsman, a young man named Travis, found Jesse in the parking lot. Mr. Linden. That's the best shorthorn bull I've seen since I started working cattle. I know Mr. Meeker won't say it, but I'm saying it. Jesse shook his hand. My dad raised cattle like this his whole life. Never won, never quit. He said someday they'd figure out what he already knew. Travis looked at the banner. Looks like someday showed up. Jesse nodded. 6 months late and 25 years overdue. But it showed up. The drive home was 2.5 hours. August heat fading into evening cool. The cornfields turning from green to the deep gold that happens in Iowa in late summer when the grain is filling and the light goes sideways and the whole state looks like something a painter would make up if painters understood what honest work looked like. Vera fell asleep near Lamoni, head against the window, cane between her knees, the folding chair in the back seat where it had ridden to every show Lloyd Sr. ever entered. The radio played something old, Merle Haggard or George Jones, the kind of music that sounds like gravel roads and hay dust and the sadness of men who love things time takes away. Jesse drove, checked the mirror. Lloyd was standing in the trailer, head turned sideways, looking out through the slats at Iowa moving past him in the dusk. Jesse's eyes were wet, not crying, full. The way eyes get when 7 years of holding something finally finds a crack in the wall. Dad, he said, quiet enough that Vera didn't stir. We got there. The road was straight and the light was gone, and his father's boots were on the pedal and his father's bull was in his father's trailer, and the banner was folded between him and his sleeping mother, and somewhere in the space between the radio static and the sound of tires on pavement. If you listened the right way, the silence carried something back, not words, something older than words. The feeling of a man who spent 25 years building something nobody wanted, finally being told it was enough. Lloyd the bull stands in the Linden pasture today. Red roan, crooked blaze, moderate, feet like iron. He doesn't look like a state fair champion. He looks like a bull that belongs on a small farm in southern Iowa, where the hills roll and the fences need work, and the truck won't start on cold mornings, and the woman in the house still makes biscuits every Sunday for a man whose plate she hasn't cleared from the table in 7 years. He looks like what he is, the whole animal. The one Lloyd Linden spent his life trying to breed. His son Jesse spent 6 months proving was worth the wait, and a judge at the Iowa State Fair finally saw for what it was. Not the most impressive bull in the ring, just the one that would still be standing when the impressive ones were gone.